Good afternoon. Today is a difficult day for the city of Rochester. As we face a public health crisis, this crisis has also turned into a fiscal crisis for our city and fellow cities across the country. And we are acting now to protect the essential services, including our police, fire, and 911 departments. We believe that we must do all we can to ensure we overcome an uncertain future. But first and foremost, we must maintain public safety. I was on a call last week where the council president asked me about this question. She said, when you prioritize layoffs, what will you prioritize first? And I said, the first thing that we must do above all is protect the public. The revenue losses from our sales tax as well as state aid will be significant, and they remain unknown at this time. Although we are hopeful that our federal and state governments will step up to help cities, we don't know if they'll be able to do so. I want to thank Senator Schumer for his advocacy and for leading the way, as well as those members of our federal delegation that have helped us thus far. We truly appreciate it. But we in the city of Rochester cannot wait, and we have to be sure that we live within our means to protect our community and its taxpayers. That is why today I'm announcing that we will be having 403 personnel reductions. This includes 178 furloughs, 208 job shares, and 17 separations. These personnel reductions will go into effect on Monday, May 11th. Notifications to the affected employees began earlier today. These changes will generate over $2.1 million in savings in the current year and in the next fiscal year, allowing us to ensure that not only our uniformed police, fire, and 911 employees are protected and available to continue to serve our community, but critical services like refuge, water, and environmental service workers, and our DRIVES workers that are on the front lines distributing food will be able to do so and remain doing so. I also want to note that the mayor's office is leading from the front. During these difficult times, 25 members of my office, the mayor's office staff, will be affected. Importantly, all furloughed and job sharing employees will retain their health care benefits for the duration of these changes. Separated employees will receive 9 months of health care benefits after their last date of employment. I think this is very important to note. Nearly all furloughed or job share affected employees will be made whole financially during this period because of the CARES Act. I don't make today's decision lightly. I value every one of our employees and the work that they do for our citizens and for all of us. However, we must act now to lessen the impact of this crisis on our community. Unfortunately, Rochester is not alone in making these difficult decisions. Nearly 60% of the cities across our nation are making personnel cuts due to this crisis, according to the National League of Cities. Cities like Detroit, Cincinnati, Miami Beach, San Antonio, Dayton, and that list goes on. Our city's challenge is America's challenge. It is my sincere hope that our federal and state leaders act to provide needed resources to our local governments so that we can continue to provide the vital services that we need to provide to our residents. As I said earlier, I am grateful to Senator Schumer, who continues to lead this fight. And we have all been advocating alongside him to make sure that our cities get the resources that they need. I know that Senator Gillibrand, as well as our members of Congress, have also joined us in this fight. Cities like Rochester are funded 3 ways: through sales tax, property tax, and state aid. And this is our dilemma. The governor has made it clear that state aid reductions are imminent, and the pause has dramatically impacted our sales tax. A 3-leg stool does not work well on only one leg. So clearly, we face a significant and obvious challenge, again, like cities across New York and America. I cannot stress enough that our federal government must step up to assist cities like Rochester that are on the front lines and helping our citizens to overcome this crisis, providing critical services like police, fire, 911, food, and refuse collection. Together, we can and will continue to protect our community. However, it must be a shared effort at every level of government. With that, our budget director, Chris Wagner, and our HR director, Tassie Demps, are both on the call as well, and we are available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first question is going to come from Raven Brown at Channel 10. Raven.
Hello. Hey, how difficult was this decision for you and your office to have to notify these families?
It was very difficult because one of the things that we don't know is when it's going to end. And so, of course, our employees that are being furloughed and those that are working under job share want to make sure that they will continue to remain in city employment during this time. And they asked the question of when will it end, and we can't tell them that at this point in time. And so for us, it's very hard because we know we have to continue to provide the essential services to the residents of the city of Rochester, but we must do so in a fiscally sound way. And this is the best way that we know how to do it.
My follow-up, so why is it, just so important for people to understand that while this is hard, this needs to go to this is important for essential services, like you said?
It is important for essential services because, 911, they're answering the phone calls of residents. You know that when a resident calls, they want to make sure that a police officer or a firefighter shows up. We've had last week and the last 2 weeks, we had a number of fires. As you know, we are tracking our crime numbers here in the city as well. And when people put out the refuge, they want to make sure that someone is coming to pick up their trash. And this was a way for us to continue to allow our employees to remain whole. Because of the CARES Act, when those furlough workers go on unemployment or those work share workers go on unemployment, they will be basically, or in some cases, receive more dollars than when they were working. And so this was a way to allow our employees to remain whole, but also to help lessen the blow to the city's overall budget and allow us to continue to provide for essential services like police and fire.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Atia Collins at Channel 8. Atia.
Hi, Mayor Warren. Thank you. I wanted to talk about how beneficial it is for these employees to be let go now and how they're still able to access benefits such as employment and health insurance, like you mentioned.
So we made a decision to do this now because the CARES Act runs all the way to July 29th, and for them to be able to take advantage of that as many weeks as possible, so they could be made whole during this time. Additionally, continuing to make sure that they are covered under healthcare was very important for us because we do also know that there's a pandemic going on And if them or their families need to access the healthcare system, we don't want them to have to worry about the healthcare bill during this process.
And then just a brief follow-up, you talked about how your mayor's staff will also receive some reductions. Did you look at making cuts anywhere else besides city personnel?
I don't understand the question.
Was there any conversation about finding savings in any other departments besides cutting workers or city personnel?
Our employees are our highest cost, and this was a way to allow for our employees to be made whole during this process while going either on job share or being furloughed. So this was, according to our budget director and our HR director, the best way for us to move forward, to continue to be able to apply to keep those essential services going for our 911 police officers, firefighters, and of course, our DES workers and DRIS workers.
Mayor, this is Chris. I'd like to just follow up and add to that. This is, the best course of action now, but, the mayor, acted early on here back in April. We locked down some discretionary spending across the board in other departments to the tune of about $14 million. So that action had already been taken. The actions we're taking today are additional actions above and beyond that, as the mayor said, to help protect the city finances. But certainly there will be other reductions moving forward. And departments have been asked to come up with more reductions as part of the budget that the mayor will roll out May 15th.
Thank you, Chris. Our next question will come from Patty Singer, the Minority Reporter. Patty?
Hi, thank you. Can you give examples of where these job reductions, furloughs, and sharings are? What departments, so the community knows what is considered, I hate to say anything's non-essential now, everything is essential, but where have you made these reductions?
I will turn that over to our HR director, Tassie Dibbs, to talk about exactly which departments. But early on, we went through a list of what we considered to be essential employees versus non-essential employees. We had to do that to comply with some of the federal and state regulations that were coming down. Based off of that list, we were able to pare down where we could actually furlough and job share a number of employees, and that was across the city, except for in uniformed services. And so, Tassie, if you want to take that specific question, please do so now.
So for our shared work program, as the mayor identified, we use the process of working with our department's directors and commissioners to identify for shared work specifically. It ranged from administration through Department of Environmental Services, Department of Recreation and Youth Services, our library, our civilian, and Rochester Police Department. For furlough personnel, again, also working with the departments, we identified across those same departments, just would add a couple that would be our information technology and our neighborhood and business development. So this, as the mayor identified, was a process where we worked with those department leaders to identify the best approach in looking at furlough personnel, as well as looking at the shared work opportunity.
I've sort of got a two for follow-up. So there were some positions eliminated. Where would those have been? And also, at what point do we get to where you have to go into public safety, where you have to go into refuge collection, things that really are the safety and the quality, true quality of life in the city?
So
At this point, go ahead, Tassie.
So the positions that we looked at for separation were in the areas of direct recreation and youth services, finance, Department of Environmental Services, and civilian personnel in the Department of, in our Rochester Police Department.
Non-uniformed personnel. To answer your question more specifically, Patty, at this point in time, as we prepare our budget for next year, as many people know on this call, the city's budget cycle is from July 1st to June 30th. And so on May 15th, I will be presenting our budget to City Council, and they will be going through the process of reviewing. Right now, we're trying to preserve as many of our uniformed police, fire, and 911 and DES workers, essential service workers, currently. And the reason why we're doing this is because it can and it will help us in our next year's budget to be able to continue to provide those services. Right now, we do not anticipate that there will be mass reductions in those departments, but our budget, of course, is changing daily as we get updates. And we will hopefully have some final numbers available. Well, we definitely will have final numbers available for City Council by May 15th when we have to present to them a balanced budget.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Alex Creighton at WXXI. Alex?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, Mayor. Just wondering about, the cuts, 25 cuts in your staff. How will that impact your ability to govern or lead the city going forward?
So we have one separation, and we have 24 members that are going on to job share. And so we have worked with our managers to be able to alleviate any changes to being able to provide services to our constituents during this time based on how these individuals will be scheduled. We believe that we will continue to be able to provide exceptional service with the job share program. And then the one separation is something that, we had to, of course, do to work with across the board our departments. I can't ask our departments and our businesses to make the sacrifices that we were also not willing to make in the mayor's office. This is a shared problem that was made across the board, and we're going to continue to look for, as our budget director indicated, efficiencies that we can make besides cutting or furloughing employees. We did that early on over when this first started a month ago. That was able to yield us about $14 million that we will be looking for pushing into the next budget. But of course, we still have our challenges that are facing us. And as I indicated in my remarks, the three-legged stool, meaning sales tax, as well as, AIM-aid, we don't know what we'll be receiving, and we know that they will all be significantly impacted. I also want to note that we are still under state mandate to provide $119.1 million to our school district. And so that is a state mandate that we have to comply with, and we will comply with in the next budget year.
Alex, do you have a follow-up?
Unmuting is difficult. No, I do not have one. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll go to 13 WAM News. Or somebody from 13, please. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor. My question is, obviously you mentioned already a few of the departments where you guys have already cut. I guess the big question is, is this it? Are you guys expecting to make more cuts down the line? Since we don't know how long this is going to last, are you guys anticipating more cuts could be made in the upcoming months in those same departments?
In all transparency, I don't know. And I don't know because we don't know if we are going to get relief from our federal government. We don't know if the governor and through his leadership and advocacy will be able to maintain the AIM-aid that he is providing to cities. So we are doing this now to lessen the blow coming in the next budget year. As I said, it's different for cities, the big 5 cities, because of our budget year, which starts July 1. and we will present our budget on May 15th. We will continue to evaluate as we go forward, but our number one concern is to make sure that we continue to provide public safety to our residents, and that is going to be what is at the forefront of our minds as we go through these tough fiscal challenges and as we evaluate what's yet to come.
Do we have a follow-up from Channel 13?
No follow-up. Thank you so much.
All right, our next question will come from John at Spectrum News.
Sorry, I just had to.
Do we have a question from Spectrum?
I don't have anything. Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So I had to unmute myself. Just good afternoon, Mayor. What are some of the additional things that you're doing to help the individuals that were furloughed or laid off? Are there any additional things you guys are doing or support you're giving them?
So our HR department, of course, will be working with them to apply for, to show them and give them the information for applying for unemployment. We will continue to make sure that they continue to receive their health care benefits. And for those that will be separated, they will receive, health care benefits for up to 9 months. And we will continue to make sure that we are there to support them during this time of change. Our hope is that, of course, we know that they will be made whole, given the fact that the CARES Act was able to provide additional $600 on top of what the state provides in unemployment benefits. And so as we move forward, we'll continue to evaluate, and we will continue to advocate for additional resources for our not just our employees, but for our citizens when it comes down to this issue. Revenue and the hit to revenue for our community is significant, and we need to make sure that we evaluate what's happening going forward as it pertains to our budget. And I know that our budget director is doing that on a daily basis, and that's why different changes are continuing to come down. But as we move forward, we'll make sure that our employees are our number one, an essential, our number one. We don't want to have to do this, and we don't have a choice at this point in time. It's something that we have to do, but we're going to be there for them, and we're going to make sure that they have health care during this time.
All right, thank you. I don't have any follow-up questions. Thank you.
Our next question will come from Gino at the City Newspaper. Gino.
Hi, how you doing? So this is 403 workers that are going to be impacted by this. Do you know what percentage that is of the city's entire employment? How many employees the city actually totally employs?
We have about 3,000 employees. That's including our uniform, fire, police, and 911 employees. Tassie, do you have a specific number?
The administrative areas, but not a specific number overall percentage. Of our administrative and professional, it's about 6% of the employees. Our union personnel is about 14%. And our seasonal about 8%, about 0.8%.
This is Chris Wagner. I think in aggregate, it's roughly about 11%, but that's, again, that's an estimate.
Gotcha. So I'm looking forward at the budget season. There's $2.1 million that we're saving here. Do you think that's enough? I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now where the funding's coming from, what it's going to look like. But do you think it's enough to fill in the gap, I guess?
I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to our budget director. As he indicated earlier, we have done a lot when this first started to secure and to maintain and hold on to cash. We've stopped a lot of discretionary spending. Actually, we stopped all discretionary spending and really have done everything that we can to tighten our belts. That has saved us about $14 million. This on top of that will be additional 2.1 million. And Chris, if you want to go into more specifics, I can tell you that you'll see in our budget presentation in the upcoming next week on May 15th to City Council, you'll see the detailed changes in the next year fiscal year. But Chris?
Sure, Mayor, thanks. Yeah, so as the mayor mentioned, the timing of this is challenging for a couple of reasons. In how our fiscal year works, it's going to impact our revenues in the fourth quarter of the current year that we're in, as well as have an effect on next year's budget. And again, a lot of those effects are, at this point unknown. We know the train's coming, but we don't know exactly how long the train is. And so, what we've done here, in addition to locking down discretionary spending, is with about $14 million, we've got a hiring freeze in place for all non-essential personnel, and we're doing the furloughs and the other personnel moves today that the mayor has announced. And so, we're taking advantage of the aid that the federal and state governments are giving to us. And as the mayor mentioned, these employees, will be, made whole, or even, be slightly better off than what they're making when they're working for the city during this, period of extended benefits. So, we've taken, we've locked down discretionary spending. We've got a hiring freeze in place. The mayor, rolled out the capital program, earlier, or actually into last week. And that showed, what we were doing in terms of, reductions to cash capital, and shifting some strategy there from, cash to debt, to provide some more flexibility to be able to continue essential projects as a way to address some of the shortfall next year. And, more details around, the mayor's budget proposal for next year will follow on the 15th. But those are the strategies that, the mayor, has undertaken here to kind of preserve essential services and provide as much flexibility as we can to deal with what is a dynamic situation.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Our last set of questions will come from Will Cleveland at the DNC. Will?
Am I unmuted? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm getting fast forwarded in my Zoom training because I'm filling in for Brian Sharp, who's on furlough this week. So just what's the message that you can deliver to the city, Mayor Warren, just to let them know that you're trying to do all you can to make sure everyone's being kept whole and things like that?
I think that the message is very clear that we are doing everything that we can and have done everything that we can to preserve public safety as our #1 priority here in the city. That's first and foremost. The second is we've taken a very strategic look at where we can alleviate some of the stresses on the budget, and meaning that staff that could receive and also be made whole by going on furlough or work share, we are allowing them to do that, and that is going to save us additional dollars. We also want everyone to know that we will continue to advocate for additional resources from the federal government and the state government. We will work very, very hard to ensure that the people that do not feel this are the people that are our taxpayers, and that their essential services will continue to be there and remain there when they call. For us, it's how do we maintain exceptional service to our residents, but also make sure that we are fiscally sound as a city. It's very, very important for us to be able to move forward. The one thing that we cannot do is print money. It's not something that we have the luxury of doing. So we have to work within the means that we have. And the means that we have is, as I stated, that three-legged stool. It's our property tax, our sales tax, as well as the revenue that we receive from our state. And we know from the governor's messages on a daily basis that the state has challenges as well. And that's why we are advocating and joining with cities across America and asking for our federal government to help us. We need your help. This is not about, maintaining city government as it pertains to, just, finance or budgets. We're talking about police officers being able to actually be working. We're talking about firefighters being able to fight fires, 911 operators being able to answer those calls, our DES workers being able to go and pick up refuge. And so we need your help. I join with our mayors across the country in saying that we cannot do this without you. And we're doing everything that we can within our limitation to make sure that we're able to provide and continue to provide essential services. And we do not know when this will end. And it's going to get tougher and tougher as the days go by. And so we cannot play politics with the health of our cities.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to take one more question from Patty Singer, the Minority Reporter. Patty?
Thank you, Justin. How were these separations done, being mindful of any union provisions or anything, contractual obligations that you have? How did that play into how you were making these reductions?
So we've been working with our unions and notified our unions that we were going to have to do furloughs. We were hopeful to be able to come to an agreement with our unions on some of the changes that we needed to make as it pertains to furloughs. Unfortunately, we were not able to make a contract with them. However, because the employees will be made whole, the damages to the actual employee, when we evaluated this with HR and budget in our law department, we found that it was best to go ahead and proceed. We will continue to work with our unions to ensure that we're doing the best that we can by our employees. And that thought process of what is the best way to handle this was, of course, at the forefront of our minds. And only employees that would either be made whole or make additional dollars being furloughed or on job share were affected by this, except for those that are being separated from employment.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we close the press conference, are there any additional remarks you'd like to add?
I'd just like to say that this is a very difficult decision. It's a difficult day for all of us. I started the day talking to our senior management team, who, of course, did not want to do this. And I, as a mayor, did not want to have to go and look at personnel reductions. But when we did all that we can on the front end of this to actually rein in discretionary spending and saving the city $14 million, looking at our capital spending budget and taking and saving cash as best as we can, we've done that. There are going to be some hard decisions going forward. So this, unfortunately, will not end on May 15th or when City Council passes our budget. The fact of the matter is we will continue to have to evaluate. The one thing that I can assure our citizens of is that we're going to be transparent, we're going to be upfront, but most of all, we're going to be honest with you about what's happening. And I cannot tell you when the end is going to come. I can assure you that you have a team here at City Hall that's working across government spectrums to make sure that we not only advocate, but that we tell our representatives what we need in order to continue to provide those essential services to you, our taxpayers. We ask you to continue to listen to our health officials when it comes down to social distancing and protecting our circle. Everybody has a role to play in this. And I cannot stress it enough that the role that we must play is to continue to protect our circle and to stop the spread of this virus to others. The sooner that we can do that, the better it will be for everyone across the board. Again, I ask that you continue to advocate and join with us in advocating with our federal partners for additional resources for cities. What Rochester faced, every city across this nation is facing. As I said, 60% of cities have already taken these steps. And I've spoken with many of those mayors who, of course, did not want to have to do this. But we are in a situation where we're having to make choices, hard choices, in order to keep our governments going. Public safety is our #1 concern. I can assure you that that will be the last thing that we look at when it comes down to making sure that our employees and our citizens are taken care of in cutting their budgets at this point in time. But I want to be very, very clear with you that going forward, we are going to have to protect each other during this time. The things that I saw this weekend were unacceptable. We have to do what's necessary now in order to ensure that tomorrow will be better. We are doing our best in city government to take the short-term solutions so that it does not have long-term effects. But if we do not curb this, we will have to make long-term decisions that will have long-term effects on our residents and our taxpayers. We need your help. We cannot do this alone. Thank you. And may God continue to bless our community.